Okay, that's fine.
Good
Perfect.
evening all. We'll start with the literature review. So the major topics we'll cover is what is literature review, why we want to do the literature review, and how will we do the literature review. So in short, literature review or what is literature review? So we can say it's a documentation of a comprehensive review of published and unpublished work in the areas of specific interest to the researcher. So in the literature review, what will you do? So you search the topic and you can come to know what others have done about your topic. You can critically analyze the already done researches, you evaluate it, you categorize it into subheadings so that it will be of use for your future further work. First is select a topic that is already mentioned, how to make a research question. So once you select a topic and you uh, made a research question, this literature review bring clarity and focus to your research problem. It will give more clarity to the research problem. The literature review should contain major works in that area of research, and it should be of narrow topics. For example, you are doing something on like diabetes. So there will be lots of work in the broad area of diabetes. And suppose you are doing something in the diabetic food, so you better in the literature review better narrow down the topic to the diabetic food. And again, what again you are doing in the area of diabetic food, whether you are checking the like neurological aspect or the vascular aspect. So narrow down your topics to that aspect, and it is not an annotated bibliography. It should be an argument on the importance of your research. Now, why you are doing the literature review or the purpose? So for you, it is easy to say the purpose because you want to do a thesis. So in the thesis, you have to first of all you have to uh, submit a protocol, and the protocol there is a subheading called literature review. So you are doing a literature review. So apart from that, what actually does it mean? So a literature review should contain what is already known about the subject. You are doing something about the diabetic food or the vasculature and the blood flow and relation between blood flow and diabetic food. So what is already known about the subject, like many Doppler studies, many indices, all of you is already known, and what need to be known about the subject, and what is the gap exists in the relevant body of knowledge. So these things should be addressed in the literature review, and your research should address the some gap which is existing in the relevant body of knowledge. And the literature review helps to attain a good knowledge in the field of inquiry. That is, you will come to know about the facts. You will come to know who are the scholars already done researches in this area. And once you come to know who are the major or the researchers who are doing work in the area, then their work also can be, you can follow their latest work, and that will again add to your knowledge in the broader area and also in the area of your research. And what are the various methodologies adopted by the researchers? Like few methodologies may not be able to be, you cannot adopt all the methodologies you are doing, but still you can modify those methodologies and to answer your question. You will come to know how to generate hypothesis, and it also should commence a long-term study of interest. Means after the submission of your thesis, once if you are doing a good literature review, you will be actually interested more in that area, and your further career may be directed towards that subject. Now that is the main purpose of literature review, and now we'll see how to conduct a literature review. So as in the picture, it's a cyclical process. You are selecting a topic. Now you search and choose the literature by various electronic media and by other methods. And once you select few literature, you analyze and interpret the literature, and you start writing the review. Once you start writing the review, or before that itself, like once you start reading the literature, you can modify the topic, because sometimes once you come to know about the or once you start reading the research already done, you will come to know that the topic selected is very well described by previous studies. So there is no much point in doing the same thing again, or you are not going to add any knowledge in that area. So you can modify. So there is no need for just abandoning the topic. You can modify the topic. So you are actually increasing your knowledge in that area. So you will come to know what actually is to be done in that area. So that's a cyclical process. As you write the review, you may modify the topic, and you again, once you modify the topic, you will be reading more about that research or the topic, and again that continues. First, identification of the topic. How will you identify the topic? Usually you will be asking your seniors, your colleagues, and you ask your guide and other faculties in your department. Then also you will be searching some theses already done in the same university or some other university, and you identify a topic and how to frame a literature research question and all is described. So in general, you start with at least some idea of the broad subject area, and in order to set parameters for your search. Next, compile a bibliography of this broad area. So the main sources are mainly the electronic database, and books, journals, conference papers, theses, all add to your research. The source of literature can be divided into primary and secondary. Primary is written by a person who conducts the research, that is more authentic, and secondary literature is mainly summaries and quotes from the primary source. And the best source are from peer-reviewed library database. I will come to it later. And appropriate sources are published in the last 5 years, which will give you idea about the latest research in that area and what you want to do to fill the gap in the existing knowledge. Then apart from the library database, you can also use periodicals, books and dissertation, but that should be kept to a minimum. These are the e-sources where you are going to search. The first one is Medline or PubMed. It's a health and medical database offering reference to medical, nursing and social care literature. It contains mainly peer-reviewed journals. Cochrane Library, another very authentic database, which is a collection of database that contain high quality, independent evidence to inform healthcare decision making. Then Google Scholar, Sinhal, all these are other database where you can search. Then another important one is website of relevant association like WHO, and these are other e-databases. Now you should know something about the evidence pyramid when you write the literature review. The highest quality of evidence comes from systematic reviews and meta-analysis. And just below that is the data from randomized controlled trials, then from cohort studies, case control studies, case series, case report comes to the base of the pyramid. And expert opinions, animal research all come in the lowermost part of the pyramid or base of the pyramid. So when you come read that this data or this opinion is from a systematic review or from a randomized controlled trial, that means it is of high quality evidence. But again, apart from that, you should read the methodology to know whether it is actually a randomized controlled trial or it is only a claim. Sometimes the authors claim that I've done a randomized controlled trial and the conclusion is so and so. But when you read the methodology, you will come to know that it is not randomized or it's not a blinded study. And you will get all these evidences from the Cochrane Library, PubMed, Embase, or from all these databases. So you search the literature. Now you have to read the literature with critical analysis and evaluate. So never go by the heading. Most of the time it may mislead. So you identify article by heading only, but always read the abstract at least. So abstract usually gives you a general idea about the methodology, about the result and objective, methodology, result and some conclusion. So once you read the abstract, you can have a rough idea whether it will be of use to your study, whether it is of good quality evidence, and you can store it for later reference or for detailed reading. Critically read it. If you do not have a theoretical framework or themes in mind to start with, use separate sheet of paper for each article or book. So nowadays you may not be writing down in any book. So instead you can form a folder in your laptop, and in the folder you can again form other folders, subheadings with subheadings. For each article you can make a Word document to write the major points. So to start with, you can do like that, then you can combine the relevant articles. Once a rough framework is made, use separate sheet of paper or Word document for each theme. While you read, think about what were the research aims of the paper. Is the research aim achieved? If so, how did they do it? Are there any problems with their methodology? Was it a strong or weak research model? How will this research help with your own research? What can you take from it? What needs to be avoided, or are you doing differently? So that is very important. It is not just copying down their research to your setting. There should be something different you should do. And again, for example, I am following up some 100 patients. I give a drug to 50 patients and I give another drug to 50% because of some indication. I cannot call it a randomized controlled trial because I am just giving a drug according to indication and I am just doing observation for the outcome. So if you call it if the author calls this a randomized controlled trial, so in the critical reading and evaluation, you should identify that it is not a randomized controlled trial. And also you should notice where there are significant differences of opinion among researchers and give your opinion about the validity of these differences. And you critically read and evaluate whether the author is biased. There will be always some bias, like only the positive results may be published, or like so you should While reading, you should be able to identify the bias and whether it's a trustworthy source, any limitations. So usually, the author himself will be writing some limitations, and that you can and you should also try to identify the limitations, and any limitation if it is replicated in your setting, or if the author is having some limitation, and how can you avoid that limitation in when you are doing the similar study. All these should be evaluated. Critically analyze whether the claim is true, partly true, or false. For example, you are reading a study where some drug is given for COVID patients, and all the patients are cured or free from the disease, and the author claims that the patients are recovered because of this drug. So you should identify first, check the objective, see the methodology, and according to the methodology whether the claim is true or partly true or false. So all the claim of the author may not be true. Find evidences to support the claim, or is it only an assumption? Okay, sometimes the claim that the drug cures the disease may be only an assumption. So such a claim is there, whether the methodology adopted by the author helps to come to a conclusion. That should be analyzed. And after reading, evaluation analysis should develop an argument with the support of literature for your research. Why am I doing my study? Because I have this literature which shows some evidence about this, which gives some knowledge about this topic, but still some part are not clear. So I am doing my study to find out these things. Okay. Now you are writing a review. You read the literature. You first identify some literature, you categorize it, and now you read it, and now you have started writing the review. So list the main ones, converting them into subheadings. Subheadings should be precise, descriptive of the theme in question, and follow a logical progression. Now under each subheading, record the main findings with respect to the theme in question, highlighting the reason for and against an argument if they exist, and identifying the gaps and issues. Write in past tense because those studies are already done. Okay, so and so found out that should be so always it should be in past tense except when describing its significance or when you give your opinion about the that study. You can use present tense. Use an organizational scheme. I'll come to it later. Okay. For example, you are doing a literature review on video games. So few researchers have done some researches, and they have found out that there are studies which shows that the video games make people more isolated. They cause obesity. Some studies have shown that it gives a sexualized perception of women. It improves hand-eye coordination as a positive thing. Then it improves problem-solving skills as per some studies, but it exposes to violence. These are some points which you identify them from few studies. So how will you categorize? Either you can categorize it as like positive effects or negative effects. That is one. Again, this is another categorization where studies which show the physical effect of video games, studies which show psychological effect, studies showing social and emotional well-being. So by categorizing this in this level may be more helpful to argue the importance of your work. There should be always be some organizational scheme, like either a chronological order, like the earlier studies, like studies done in 2000, studies done in 2005, then in 2010, 2013, 2015, like that. So studies done in chronological order, or a problem cause solution order, or a general to specific order, known to unknown order, comparison or contrast order, specific to general order. There should be some order, whichever way you select. So with that, I will give you some example. The study by one of our JR3. So he has identified snake bite as his area of interest because somebody said to him that you get lot of snake bite in our department, so it is easy to get cases. So among the snake bite, his seniors have already done few studies in snake bite about the clinical profile, about the complications. So he thought, okay, we can do something on the adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. So the research question was, what is the incidence and outcome of adverse reaction of anti-snake venom in snake bite envenomation? So with this in mind, so he got some idea about from his seniors, from his colleagues. So first he started searching in the Google. That's our most available friend. So he searched adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. He got 4,25,000 results in 0.35 seconds. So it is not possible to read all these things, all these results. So what will you do? So you can start reading one or two articles from Google so that you get a general idea. Now that is the importance of databases, scientific database. The most common one we use is PubMed. So he searched in PubMed, that is adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. Okay, so he got 28 results. Okay, 28 result, it is feasible to read. Now, while searching in various databases, better to identify keywords in that area of research. Means if he use anti-snake venom as keyword, so all the researchers, all the studies in which use anti-snake venom as a keyword and present in that database will be identified by the search. Okay, anti-snake venom which is used as a keyword in any study and is indexed in PubMed will be identified by that keyword search. And sometimes you should know something about these keywords, like they may use synonyms. For example, if you are searching behavior problems in young people, so some articles, important articles regarding behavior problems in young people, in that article adolescent is they may be using adolescent as a keyword. So those important articles may not be identified by searching young people as keyword. So you should use all the synonyms while searching. Then there may be differences in European American terminology, spelling, old and new terminology like Mongolism and Down syndrome, lay and medical terminologies, and acronyms. So all this should be kept in mind while you search. And the important Cochrane Library and PubMed, Medline, etc., they use mesh terminology as keywords. So when you enter the PubMed and look for mesh terminology, you will get a lot of, like, for example, For young people, the mesh terminology, not very sure. I think it's adolescent. So if you use the mesh terminology only, you will get more hits while searching. Ideally, you should use a combination of free-text searching and subjective searching. Now, implementing search, while you search the keywords, you can use and or not. Means, for example, if you are searching again adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. So when you search adverse reactions and anti-snake venom, you get all the studies where adverse reaction is a keyword and also anti-snake venom is a keyword. Sorry, when you use and, when both are present in the study or as used as keyword, those studies will be identified. When you write adverse reactions or anti-snake venom, all the studies where adverse reaction is a keyword and anti-snake venom is a keyword will be identified. When you search adverse reaction, not anaphylactic reaction. So all the studies were adverse reactions, but excluding anaphylactic reactions will be identified. Okay. So you can use this term for for modifying or getting better search. So write while you collect and collect while you write. And also do systematically and keep a record of the searches. And it is likely to find that you develop new ideas for the search terms during the searching process and modify accordingly. No hits means keep searching with different keywords until you identify literature. Too many hits, refocus your search. Okay, too many hits means sometimes it is well described or well known subjects, so you don't have to do much in that area. So you modify your search. Okay, so I'll give you an example again with that adverse reactions of anti-snake venom. So first you write your first heading will be an introduction. So in that I'll be writing about the global and national burden of snake bite with references. What's the treatment available? That is anti-snake venom is the life-saving treatment. And what is the relevance of adverse reaction in anti-snake venom? Because it's a life-saving drug, it should be given as soon as possible. So the adverse reaction, if it is common, that may be a limiting step in administrating this life-saving drug. So that is the relevance. So you cannot take all the patients to a tertiary care center to give anti-snake venom. So I did some literature search. I asked my seniors. I did Google search and I did some PubMed search. So I got some studies, few studies, and I categorize it as some observation studies on the clinical profile and outcome of snakebite elimination, with along with some clinical profile of the adverse reactions of anti-snake venom. I got some observational studies on adverse reaction of ISV. I got some toxicokinetics studies on venom and anti-venom concentration in human body. And there was for few RCTs on pre-medication to prevent adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. So I have categorized the studies like this, and I started writing. So from the observation studies, I came to know that the adverse reactions are common. So I'll be writing the adverse reactions are common and write the summary of these studies in my own words. Or you should write this, in fact, just by doing copy paste of these studies, you should write a brief summary of the study in your words. So in Nepal, the adverse reactions are, for example, according to this study, it is 60%. In India, in North India, the study showed a 70% adverse reaction with anti-snake venom, like that. So the various studies, they show neurotoxic and hemotoxic bite, and the requirement of ASV is also different in different areas according to many studies. So they all should be referenced. And the types of reaction noted in various studies. Why the prevalence is different in different studies, and what is the why there are difference in incidence of the reactions and severity of the reactions. So I can write the incidence of reaction according to the studies and severity of reaction, and why I think there is difference is there. Maybe because the batch of antivenom use is different. Some places they use monovalent antivenom, so that can be written in my own words. Now, with that, I will be moving with what are the available data in our area and what is the relevance of our such data. So the data available in India, in Kerala or in Thrissur, the various prevalence of snake bite or admissions, its outcome, then various anti-snake bite, ASV reaction, whether the data, good data is available or not, I can write. Then there are some studies available on pre-medication to prevent reaction. Okay, because the adverse reaction is so common, so prevention of reaction will help in easy administration of the ASV. So since they are RCT, I'll be giving some comment on the study design, whether it is actually a randomization is there, whether it is a double blind or single blind study, etc. And the outcome of the study and limitation will be commented in the literature review. And what is our status of pre-medication, whether we have any data available regarding the pre-medication, whether we are giving steroids or antihistamine as pre-medication. So from the literature search, I came to know that we don't have much data on the adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. No much data on pre-medication which prevent the adverse reaction. So there is need to generate data initially in the regarding the adverse reaction of anti-snake venom and its outcome. Okay, whether they are mild reactions or major life-threatening reaction, all this data to be generated. So my objective of the study is to find out the incidence and outcome of adverse reaction of anti-snake venom. So this is one way of writing. Thank you.